Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Cloud Up's Ask a Designer series. I am Andy Galpern. I am the host today, and we have a very special guest for you, Miss Angela Dawn. Angela works at Eventbrite on design systems. She's a product designer. She's extremely talented. She also has her own Uniglitter brand, which I wear all the time. And today she's dressed up like a unicorn. So we're in Halloween gear. Angela, you might want to show your face if you turn on your video. Say hi. Oh, there you go. Okay. And I'll be moderating today, but what we want, the whole format of this is that we have this little Q&A area, and we want you guys to ask the questions that you would like to learn from Angela. I'll kick things off with a question or two, but mostly this is about what you guys want to learn from Angela working at Eventbrite and design systems. She also worked at Facebook on a lot of product design stuff, and she ran her own company, Uniglitter, and she continues to do so. And we'll get things started right now.
So right now our team is, it's actually large in my opinion, but we're growing as well to support the many needs of a design system. We have one other designer that's full-time on design systems, Dave, and then me. And then I have two other designers that work alongside, Matthew and Stephanie. And then we have the whole engineering team. So when working with design systems, I feel like you really work with a lot of engineers on a day-to-day basis, but also designers. My actual team is like the design systems team, but then there is the full product design team, which I have to work with on a daily basis to make sure that I'm building the right tools and making everything that's great for them.
One thing that we talked about a lot when we were going over the idea of having you come in and talk, woohoo, was about cross compatibility across devices and have consistent look and feel. And so we were talking about creating a consistent look and feel across multiple devices. What are some of the challenges that you face within that?
Yeah, so right now at Eventbrite, we are in this cross-platform initiative with our design system. So when we design things, and components specifically, we design them on web, mobile web, Android, iOS, tablet, and then we also have dark mode, which throws in another wrench of challenges. But with that, it's interesting because every platform has its specific things that it wants to cater to, similar to a calendar on web and how it's different on iOS and Android. And so you had to understand when do you make everything consistent, or when do you actually conform to the platform's design practices.
I mean, I'm sure how much flexibility do other designers get? I feel like design systems are fantastic because they keep everybody, they're like, okay, well, I'm on the Eventbrite page. I know that this is a part of the Eventbrite brand. But at a certain point, do designers get this itch to want to create something different or add something new to the mix? How do you manage that?
Yeah, so that's always been a balance of flexibility and consistency. Right now, I think we're starting to add more, rules so that designers kind of have guardrails when they're designing. But those rules are typically on color, on typography, on spacing classes, so that it's consistent across the board. When it comes to components, we allow designers to kind of create things that work for them, but then propose them to us during office hours and in team meetings.
Did you guys hear that? Because quickly, message, chat. Sorry. As you were talking, it sounded like it was bad internet connection for a second. Sorry to interrupt. Yes, hold on. You're good. There was a quick, okay, oh, wait, okay. So let's re-answer that question. Just sorry about that. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so you have to kind of balance between consistency and flexibility. Right now we have guardrails for designers that we've been making, which kind of include typography, color, spacing classes. And, with those, it kind of makes everything look consistent. But then we have components. We have a good key set of components that are vetted and tested by our team for accessibility and contrast ratios and usability. But designers sometimes need things that we don't have time to create. And so sometimes we allow them to create new components, but that's also with the guidance of our team.
So you guys are like the governors, but you have a democracy. So you have to make sure that it's fair and that you listen to everybody and that they have good ideas. You want to make sure that it fits well into the system. We do have a question about asset libraries from Nick McBurney. And what are some of the tools and platforms you use to manage asset libraries, from font styles, buttons, icons within the design team?
Yeah, so that's always been like one of those questions where we ourselves are always looking for new tools. Right now we use Sketch and their Sketch libraries. Those have been working really well. I also use a lot of plugins, which sometimes they depreciate, like Patty. But some of the plugins that have really worked for us are the color palette plugin and type styles. And just importing all the different textiles and colors has really helped. The symbol library we have is really massive and robust and pretty time consuming to manage, but it is really helpful. And then when it comes to the web and sharing this across the team, we actually have a dedicated website. It's not public, but we hope for it to be public soon.
Yep. What is the name of is there a name for the design system that you have at Eventbrite?
Yeah, it's called EDS, the Eventbrite design system, although sometimes I always dream of new names for it.
Unicorn design system, right? Totally Angela representative. Design. Our friend Adam Ruff has awesome questions as always. Let's look at some of the questions. I think that what are the biggest challenges that you've encountered when building a design system for Eventbrite, and how did you tackle it?
What a great question. I think, there's a lot of different challenges I have on a daily basis. So I think one of the biggest challenges is like education across a large team. And so when every designer has their own busy life and they're all doing their own thing, some designers might not read things, and just keeping everyone up to date on the latest components, latest updates, latest changes has always been kind of a challenge on a team of over 20 designers. But we are really working hard. So I would say that we use Slack, we use email. We kind of go on different platforms and just ping everyone at the same time. And we're also there to kind of handhold people with our office hours. And they can come in if they have any questions and we can help them out.
Adam also asked a question about what advice do you have for creating a spacing system that product designers love to use. When you say spacing, do they mean like the padding and spacing and like the line, like everything is like 12 pixels, or is that what he's referring to? Or
I think so. Yeah, right now the spacing system has been kind of baked in by engineering. We work with them to make sure that it works out. I would say that create a great spacing, you just have to work with engineers and then help share the class names to all the designers. But my answer is not the best because I didn't design the design system spacing system, so I don't have the best answer for that.
But as a question, like from yourself as a designer, do you think that it's important to have like you guys have like everything is by multiples of 12 or by 6 or by like what is the best way to make it so that way everything looks uniform as far as spacing and padding?
Yeah, I will say something that has been really successful for us is creating patterns. And so like on one page, kind of a template where it's like, here's what a button, from the top header should look like. And here's like where the title should look like. And then there's different spacing within like components, which is like a smaller set of spacing. And then we have spacing for like parts of the page. Which I think really helps designers understand like what are the building blocks, how much space should go in between each building block. So I really think templates has really helped us a lot.
It probably makes sense for us to talk about scaling design systems, as asked by Marcella Yapura. Did I say your name right? Hopefully. Angela, what's the best way to scale a design system? Think about software and organizational wise. How can you best scale a design system?
Let me think about that one. How do we scale a design system?
Enforce it from the bottom, right? Like making sure that everybody is on the same page in a small level.
Not just a small level, but also a larger organizational level, and like communicating the value of a design system. Without, approval from leadership, I don't think we would have such a great team and all the resources that we have right now. So obviously, communicating the importance and the value of having a design system and how much faster the engineers can be with it, as well as the designers.
And how accessible is it for other people who are like on different teams? For them, how accessible is it for them to be able to access the current design system at Eventbrite?
Yes, so at Eventbrite, we have the website, which is the EDS site that we have. It's internal. But I would say that there are some constraints when you use things like InVision or like special tools like Dropbox Paper, where some other people who don't have access to that might not be able to see the documentation. So making sure that your documentation is open to everyone in the company, like PMs to engineers to random customer service support people who are building pages for their clients. All those things, like just having an open and kind of internally public design system is super key.
What do you use for documentation?
Yeah, so right now our documentation site is built by engineers, but that has caused a constraint for us to, basically add new documentation on the fly. So I know in a hackathon that's coming up, we're building an inline tool so that you can edit the documentation ourselves. But in the meantime, we use Dropbox and also Google Docs to kind of just hold all of our documentation. We also have an InVision account, and we upload that to all the designers. But for engineers, we use Google Docs.
Nice. Have you ever considered Confluence from Atlassian? I think they have a really good documentation setup and like how-tos and all that jazz.
Yeah, we have explored Confluence. I think, when you're building these tools for the people that you're building them for, designers, engineers, you kind of have to know what they're using every day. And if they're not using Confluence, to get them onto Confluence might be kind of difficult.
But Confluence, on the contrary, is part of Atlassian, which is part of JIRA. So it's just something to explore. Although I do find it difficult sometimes because it's like, I've got to go to another website. I just want to keep it all slim and equal. When you said Dropbox, do you mean Dropbox Paper?
Yeah, we used Paper in the past, but I think we're moving more towards Google Docs now.
Google Docs is awesome because it's like so collaborative and easy to comment and whatnot. Okay, let's see what else we have. Next time we should bring in Adam Ruff to do the Ask a Designer. Adam, you're at Product Hunt now, right? Is that correct? I think I saw that on their Angel List or something. Okay. If not, I'll edit that part out. But I could have sworn that I saw that on your newest job. Pretty cool. Okay. So what is next? How do other team members contribute to growing the design systems?
Okay, that is a great question. And that kind of comes into if you have a democratic design system, or if you're more solo design system where only the team can make changes. Right now, since we can't predict every single use case that could possibly come up in the future, we love to kind of build a partnership with the different teams at Eventbrite. At Eventbrite, we have these different things called pods. And so each pod is targeting a different part of the product. And so our goal is to have one team member from each pod kind of be a design system ambassador. That is a goal, and we're working on it right now. That's kind of a new initiative that we're working on. And I think that will really help. But from the past, we've just had people come up to us, via Slack or in person, and just show off what they want the design system to be or do. which I think has really helped. And then we kind of work with them to see, can we fit it in our roadmap? Can we be inclusive and help them out when we can?
Say inclusive, what do you mean? You mean like the, how do you measure for, well, here's actually, no, that's a better question. How do you measure for accessibility when you're designing a design system?
Yeah, so, it'd be amazing if every single person was an accessibility expert, but it is a lot, and sometimes you forget things. At Eventbrite, I focus on like all accessibility on all of our components right now, and there has been a lot of changes that are coming up. But things like color contrast or like font size and just like the actual usability of components, like doing what they're supposed to be doing or as what's expected. That's something that's super important. And then we also have like the back-end engineering accessibility where they work with keyboard shortcuts and focus states.
Like reading out, you are about to click on this button that says, I don't know. It's so cool, like, because accessibility is just making sure everybody gets the same message, and it's like whether it's like visual or audio. And I love how people are paying more attention to voice now. And I mean, of course, there's going to be like voice and tone design systems, which will be, by the way, if anybody wants to go into a market that's probably needed in the near future, voice and tone, no, but okay, so, and then we have another question from an anonymous user named Adam Ruff. How did you get into working on design systems?
Yeah, so my previous job at Facebook, I worked on internal tools, and the internal tools at the time didn't have any sort of design system structure. So at the time, I just started making my own components and kind of like used those throughout the different tools that I designed there. To back up, I was a product designer at Facebook in the past, and I worked on internal tooling. So building tools for people, but also building tools so that people can build the tools. Super meta. But after, I took a break to start a glitter company, and then I started at Eventbrite. And at Eventbrite, they really had a big need for design systems, and I was super passionate, and they took me under their wing.
Remember, like, what we would call this back in the day, like it was maybe like 4 years ago, I actually interviewed Mark Otto and Jacob Thornton, the two creators of Bootstrap, and it was interesting. It was cool. But we thought about it. We called them pattern libraries or just like a template or whatever. And I think that we think about things like, what is a starting point? Do you take an existing pattern library and add on to it and then create your own design system? Or do you start from scratch? How did the Eventbrite design system come to play?
Yeah, so right now at Eventbrite, there was an existing design system when I joined, but the thing was that there was a lot of new changes and also a rebrand. And so when the rebrand came along, we're like, okay, let's actually take some time and focus on each component one by one. So right now, my challenge is colors and like buttons and like form inputs. So those have all been kind of like a part of my like roadmap. And then in the future, I have more adding on to that. But when I cross-platform. So we're kind of like, we have a design system, we know it needs improvements, and we're taking the time to improve these things and then release them out to the designers.
With your new redesign at Eventbrite, because you guys launched this beautiful, awesome redesign. Congratulations on IPO. Congratulations. Woohoo. Go Eventbrite. I didn't say ICO, even though I almost did. Congratulations on your IPO. You guys did a redesign. It's beautiful. How do you, did you change all the components and a lot of different things, or was it just like small little things? And then how long did it take to update the design system with the new redesign?
Yeah, so when we did the redesign, we didn't have a lot of time. It was kind of crunch time. It was very last minute. So we ended up doing typography, colors, and updating all of those across the site. We didn't necessarily make big changes on components. But the thing was is that we did it in such a rush that now we're going back in again and we're like, oh, we forgot about that, and we forgot about that, and we didn't have time to test that. So now we're taking the time to test everything and kind of really make sure that we're we're compliant to everything, and as well as just making sure that the typography system doesn't break across the site.
You might want to check out Stark. Get Stark. It's from Kat Noon. I hung out with Kat at Adobe Max, and she's awesome. But they have plugins for Sketch. They have plugins for Adobe XD, and basically it's a colorblind simulator. They check out all different, like 8 different use cases of colorblindness, and also contrast ratio checker, and make sure that you're compliant with accessibility standards. So that's a great plugin. We just wanted to a little pitch. High five to Kat, and also to you, Angela, and to Adam Ruff, and to everybody else here. Thank you. I did want to ask a question. Oh, look, who's here? Asher Bloomberg. I wonder who that is. How do you choose colors in a design system instead of creating your own? What would you, okay, so if you, hold on one second. I got pushed down. So Asher Blumberg asks, how do you choose colors in a design system? Are they based off the brand, or are they derivatives of the brand colors? Great question, Asher. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, also for Stark, that is a useful plugin. I use it almost every single day. It's great. And to answer that question, wow, colors have been a huge, part of my job lately. And I've spent the last 3 weeks just looking at colors. We had colors that were, chosen by brand, and those colors might not have been accessible, at least tested to like the point of use within components. So the colors were accessible if they were used for large type in the product, but if they were used inside of a button, they were not. That kind of goes into like white text and the size of the text. This became a huge issue at Eventbrite when thinking of colors. So I had to basically look at the different options that we had for accessible colors, and make a whole new palette and test that with the many different components that we have, and even future use cases that we have as well. But they were based off of like the brand. Like we have the brand orange, and then for actual states, we have error, success, warning, and those states are just used for components specifically. And those states basically are super accessible. They're only supposed to be used in that way and not decorative at all.
Okay, and I like Mick Burney's question. He talks about user testing, and how often do you run user testing on your designs, either existing designs that are live or upcoming new features that are in progress? What is your process for integrating feedback and changes into designing and retesting? Good question, Nick. Thank you.
Yeah, so when designing a component in general, we kind of follow the same product design process that other product designers go through, where we have a research phase, and we have a user testing phase, and we have an actual design phase, and then a handoff. Yeah, I know, it's pretty crazy. But we have to work with many different teams who use these components and make sure that it works within their product specifically, because I could just be designing different components, but I have to think of the users at the company that are using them and how it kind of scales across platforms. For user testing specifically, one example could be required form fields and how we handle required form fields at Eventbrite. Do we use red asterisks? Do we specifically call it out? These were all things that we actually user tested and had the time to do that. And we came out with some really great results that worked. I think that answers your question. And then for new features, it's the same process. Like we have to do a whole research phase. We look at how other companies do it and really dig down to what are the practices. And we look at material guidelines and iOS human interface guidelines as well, and see the patterns and how we can blend them together.
Like Jad Limkako, he has that whole design system resources website that has a list of like every single design system on the market, except for Eventbrite, because you guys haven't published it publicly yet, but stay tuned. But that's another really good reference that I just want to shout out there. But also, Adam had a good question, which is that if for any reason that you wanted to create a quick design system, and instead of creating one on your own, is there any particular template or anything that you would recommend?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of design systems that have publicly available design systems out there. Like, I know Shopify has a beautiful design system. Salesforce might have a great design system, and just kind of using, like, understanding how they built their symbol library, and how they actually like did everything for the designers, their artboards and their sketch, and also their website documentation. I think, depending on how big your team is, it depends on how much documentation you actually want to write about each component. And how strict you want to get. But I think you could look at other design systems and really use those as a great starting point for inspiration, and also just understanding how they're, built and shared across teams.
I think, am I on mute? There we go. Yeah, no, I think actually Ashley brings up another question, which is about illustrations. Like thinking of the illustrations and how everything, like everything is part of your brand, whether it's your voice, your tone, the visuals, the illustration styles, or even the typography. Do you systemize illustrations to create consistency across the platform?
Yeah, I'll share a huge pain point that we came across recently with the rebrand was that designers were not naming the illustrations that they were exporting to engineers correctly. So when we were searching for different illustrations, we just got image.png or JPEG, and it was really hard to tell, like, what is this illustration based off of like the code base. So moving forward, we now have like guidelines on naming conventions and how we export our illustrations. As far as like actual like illustration consistency, that kind of comes down to the brand. I would say there are different styles you can go with, and just really focusing on like one style across the whole product, or two styles used throughout. But make sure that the colors are, reflective of the brand for sure.
There we go. We're in the same room, so we're just trying to avoid some feedback, but we wanted to be together for this special event because Angela's a good friend of mine, and she's awesome. So anyway, one of the things that I run into, because I work in marketing design, but I also work in, I also do like design evangelism and whatever, but talk about typography systems and then the brand, the actual product design. So sometimes the product itself, like with iOS, or has limitations because you'll have to use like the San Francisco font versus like Avenir that we use a lot of the times inside of our marketing design systems. How does a typography translate across marketing and also the actual product?
That is an amazing question, and something that we deal with on a daily basis at Eventbrite. We have an entire brand team, and so when they create marketing landing pages, they actually have their own set of like headers and like large bold fonts that they use specifically for marketing, and they also have their own colors that are only used when Eventbrite is speaking to the audience, but not used within components. So there's kind of like two design systems you have there. You have a separate palette for brand and marketing, and you have a separate palette for components and user interfaces. When it comes to illustrations, that's when marketing can kind of shine into components and those interfaces that people work with on a daily basis. But I will say that like that is a whole separate thing. Like they have their own typography system for large headers, but everything else is the same. And then for, I guess, emails, same thing, using the same kind of bold header treatments. And if you can't use the exact same font, just try finding like very equivalents if that's an issue.
Make sure that the typeface is installed in their machine. Well, mostly just for like iOS kind of stuff, because it's like San Francisco is usually a safe bet. Helvetica, all that, whatever. No, but thank you for that piece of advice, because that is something that we wonder about as well. Like, how do we carry across the components, like from marketing, even with like buttons all the way to like our desktop Mac app for Windows. It might be a little bit different, but we all want to like, everybody wants to open it up and know that in our case, it's Cloud App. And for your case, know that it's Eventbrite. Do you have anything else to add to that? Or
Yeah, I'd also say, those are also other platforms. So we have like web and mobile web and iOS, Android, but we also have email and, marketing landing pages. Those are, if we had, full resources, we would dedicate more resources to that. But what we do is that we strive to keep the same buttons and the same input fields and the same like type styles.
and what I don't know if what kind of well, so you said you use Sketch. You said you use a bunch of plugins on Sketch. Do you use Zeppelin or anything like that, or how do you display all the different components to share with your team engineering?
Yeah, so on my team specifically, they're, front-end engineers and they work on components. For other teams, they use the documentation site to reference the components that they're using in designs. Right now, we actually redline everything with class names and sharing that across the team as well, making tools so that it's easier for redlining is one of our goals. But yeah, we still do redlining. We tried Zeppelin, but it wasn't quite there yet to what we needed. And we've also tried Envision and Inspect, but it depends on how your company works. If you can use like Envision, Inspect, or Zeppelin, then props to you guys. I know at Eventbrite we have to use class names because that's just how the engineers speak, and that's what they prefer.
That makes sense. Like more like use like SAS or like a specific like Eventbrite orange instead of actually like number whatever the orange color is. I forgot. It's been a while. Halloween orange. No. Okay. Good question here. What do you wish you knew about working on design systems when you first started, Mrs. Angela Dawn? Tell us everything. No. What do you wish you learned? What do you wish you knew about working on design systems when you first started?
That is a great question. I'm trying to think right now. What do I wish I knew? I think, no, I love working on design systems and the different many challenges that it comes with. But I wish I knew, I guess, when I first started, I don't think I really had too much of a voice in say because I just joined the company and I was still learning how everything worked. So it'd be cool if I knew how everything worked before then. But now that I know all the components and how they work and how to speak to engineers and all this lingo that Eventbrite uses, I feel like now I have a voice and I can really say we should do this because of this and it should be like this because of the users, and really focusing on that and just knowing that what you're doing is for the greater good and not just your visual opinion. So that's something that I kind of wish I knew. It's just when you start a new design system, you kind of have to learn everything, and it's not just running from the ground up.
Okay, and what about when somebody is inappropriately applying design in a non-Eventbrite way? How do you manage them? How do you communicate with them in a way that's diplomatic and that it's friendly, yet it's this is not working? But but I love you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that really comes down to you could be the pattern police, and you could really lay down the law and just tell everyone no, but then you might might scare other designers in a sense from even wanting to talk to you because they might just run and do their thing without even telling you. I think that's something that our team has kind of learned over time. And that we have to be really welcoming and really friendly and just acknowledging why they're doing what they're doing and really being open and perceptive to the challenges that they have in their design daily basis. And I think it's fine if people break the system, just as long as it doesn't affect accessibility and it doesn't deter away from the entire system. If someone decides to do something rogue and create new buttons for their entire experience, that's a whole thing. But I totally understand when people want to test, quickly test, colors and types and things like that. But it just comes down to, advocating why to use our design system and why it's important to stick with it. and because everything has been super tested and heavily vetted by the team.
That's important because you just want to make sure that it looks like Eventbrite and that it's part of the Eventbrite ecosystem, it's part of the brand. Here's a question for some people who we had maybe like one or two people who are new or like thinking of getting into design systems. Do you think that, so UX is obviously like thinking and strategizing and looking at everything, doing a content audit and like being able to figure out what information will, to organize information in a way that's going to bring people in and, you know, achieve the business goals. But then design systems, of course, will support that. But design systems is definitely more like a visual and the like the experience of like how you click on like certain buttons and like know what is what and identifies the brand. What kind of person or kind of, do you think that design systems is for everybody, or is it more of a visual designer role?
I would say it's good for unicorns, specifically people who love both UX and UI, you know, the visual design and the usability side of things. I think if you don't know any usability, it's going to be kind of hard to, you know, think of these components in that way. I think it's just a balance, and our team, you know, has a balance. Like we have a good balance of, you know, UX designers who really are strong on that side of the front. And we also have a good balance of visual design. So we can kind of complement each other when we're in meetings and just make sure that we're all on the same pace. But I do think it's great to kind of know both. You don't have to be super strong at both, but just like understanding like the process and, you know, going through, I think the whole process really helps when you're designing a component.
Especially with like motion or animation, how much of motion do you include in the design system?
As much as we have time to. It is definitely something that can really, I guess, evoke a brand, but it has to be done right. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges, is that if you have multiple designers working on motion and every motion piece is different, it doesn't feel very consistent. We do have a designer on my team, Dave O'Brien, and he's amazing at motion design. So he kind of thinks of components like loading states and button like spinners and things like that when we work on components.
Micro interactions and ways to like have consistency. By the way, Angela, you should back up for a sec so everybody can actually see your uniform. Oh yeah. See, Angela is a unicorn. She's a unicorn, and she runs on the side. She has her and Asher Blumberg. They run Uniglitter, but that's a whole other thing because we are continuing to talk about design system. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Can you walk through how you prioritize design system, how you prioritize your work with design systems, starting with typography, because then, does that make sense?
Yeah, okay. Totally makes sense. Okay. I will definitely vet for this because this is something that we've recently learned with the rebrand. You know, we made a whole list of components and we're like, what do we tackle next? We started on buttons, first component, and we realized we couldn't finish buttons until we had typography and color. Right. And so we kind of had to go backwards and start with typography and color again. And same with like typography, it needed color to kind of balance. I would say try to do both around the same time so you can kind of play with the two, and definitely take different experiences or different designs and see how it plays throughout the system. I do think color is super important when creating all your components and just having a good base. Otherwise, you're just gonna have to change everything up again and like keep going backwards.
Awesome. Okay, so we have maybe like one or two more questions. There was a question about an area, like what is an area of the Eventbrite design system that's been in like a weak spot, or some areas that have been troublesome that you would like to improve within the design system at Eventbrite? I'm sure other people who work in corporate design systems can relate as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to one of the things I really want to improve is showing like real examples in the design system. And I think a lot of design systems lack this. You kind of see like a button here or like a calendar thing there, but you don't really see it in a whole experience or in a flow. And so something that I want to do is kind of take different flows, take different experiences throughout the product and show how these different components work with each other. And I think that's something that we lack, something that we should like really push forward to.
Fantastic. Okay, one last question. Anybody got it? Drum roll, please. I think we answered all of them. Okay, well, I guess guys, thank you so much, Angela. Thank you for coming out and sharing your knowledge. What's your favorite Halloween candy? They've asked.
Oh, my favorite Halloween candy. I love chocolate and everything chocolate.
Okay, great. So I know what to bring you every day. Chocolate. Every single day I'll drop off chocolate. I'll have a pigeon carrier from Harry Potter deliver it. So real quickly, I just wanted to go over share my screen. Share my screen. Yeah. Play. Are we here? Is that working? Besides the Q&A thing, can you see that on the screen? Can you see my Q&A thing on the screen? Yeah. Oh no. This isn't working quite as planned. Anyway, here, hold on a second. Sorry. Might have to edit the outro. Minimize. Okay. You guys can all see us. So I just wanted to quickly go over Cloud App with you guys, just because this awesome webinar would not exist if it wasn't for the lovely Cloud App. And I am, once again, my name is Andy Galpern. I am a designer, but I am mostly the head of content and design education at Cloud App. You can see us in the far right there. So we do video messaging, screen recording, annotations, Angela Dawn, no, gift creation. Can you see yourself in there? Okay, well, lovely. Hi. I don't know how to change that. And then you can check us out at getcloudapp.com. We have a lot of designers who use Cloud App. Over 3 million companies and corporations use Cloud App. We just got back from Adobe Max last week, and that was amazing. Work at the speed of sight. And also, if any of you guys would like to participate in one of my Ask a Designer series, email me andi@ga, sorry, not at Galpern, andi@getcloudapp.com. And well, let me go back to stop sharing my screen. I think that's it. That was so professional right there, right? Here, let's combine it. I'm having a little bit of a frozen moment here. And not the singer type. How do I stop sharing my screen? There we go. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much for coming out. Give it a round of applause to Angela. And if you want to get in touch with Angela Dawn, Angela, how can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can get in touch with me via email, LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm totally friendly. I'm also on the Design Systems Slack. There's a whole Slack channel out there that exists. But also, shameless plug, we're hiring 2 designers on our team. We're growing our team, and they're both design systems designers. Yeah. ADON@eventbrite.com.
It's ADON@eventbrite.com. If you guys are interested in a job at Eventbrite for design systems team, and you want to work with this lovely unicorn, awesome friend of mine, Angela Dawn, you'll have a lot of fun and you'll get a lot done, like Angela Dawn. Have a good day. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. Thank you. And thanks, Adam Ruff. Thank you so much once again for asking awesome questions. And Anita Hart, I see all kinds of friends here. I see Asher. I see Olivia Clyde. And all of our friends, we love you. See you later. Bye. Keep waving. Smile and dial.